versions of the Bible. And the first one says, "Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospers." And the TPT says, "Beloved friend, I pray that you are prospering in every way and that you continually enjoy good health, just as your soul is prospering. And the easy-to-read version says, "My dear friend, I know that you are doing well spiritually. So I pray that everything else is going well with you and that you are enjoying good health." The easy-to-read version says, "My friend, I pray that God will help you to live well. I know that you are well in your spirit. I pray that your body will also be well." And the final one, which is the New Living Translation, says, "Dear friend, I hope all is well with you, that you are as healthy in body as you are strong in spirit." So I decided to choose that topic, my wellness, my choice, because if we look at all these various versions of the Bible, it pushes the responsibility back to us. We will see that it is the desire of God that will be well. So he is not the one who will, I'm trying to use the appropriate grammar here. God will do his responsibility, but then we still have to make that effort. I mean, it's like a child who gets admission into university. Nobody will help that child to study. She can get that platform, or he or she can get it, but he still has to do all the studying, read the books, do the assignments before they can get a degree. So why I'm saying this, and I'm not saying this with any kind of disrespect, we are just sharing tonight. It's not about, I don't like teaching, I like sharing. So everything I say tonight, I'm saying it to all of us, including myself. So it's not enough for us. So it's not about condemnation or judgment. So it's not enough for us to be born again and be Christians, but we have a responsibility to actually take charge of our wellness, because this is the desire of God. He wants us, as we are well in the spirit, we will be well in our body. Because at the end of the day, our body actually is where our spirit will dwell. And if our body is not fit, we cannot even fulfill destiny. So that's why we have to look at it from that perspective. Now go on to the, so I want us, and you will notice that I'm not talking about health. I'm talking about wellness, because wellness is much more than health, because health is I don't want us to look at it very narrowly. So we'll look at wellness, because wellness in itself is actually more than being free from illness. It's a dynamic process of a change and growth as a result of deliberate effort. That deliberate effort, again, going back to what we read in the scriptures, that we have a responsibility to make certain efforts. And wellness, again, is a complete, putting together of the different dimensions of health, because health is quite wide. So we are talking about the physical, the mental, the environmental, the spiritual, the emotional, and even our social well-being. So all this put together is what we will talk about when we are talking about wellness. So it's not just about our health. So it is therefore a kind of an active process of learning coping skills for positive and negative aspects of human existence and fulfilling life. Because you see, in life, we will have positive aspects, we'll have negative aspects, and they all have to, it's about us now being able to take a balance. Because you see, at the end of the day, what happens to us in life is actually 10%, and how we manage that circumstance or that situation is 90%. So when people say certain statements, again, I'm saying this without disrespect. When I meet people who say, "Oh, this person made me angry," I just think, you don't know what you're talking about. Nobody can make you angry. You chose to become angry. Because if somebody says something to me, it is then my prerogative to decide how do I want to react or respond to that particular statement. Do I want it to get into me? Do I want it to control my behavior? Or do I want it to inform what I am going to do? Or do I want to take charge and do what exactly I am supposed to do? So when life happens, there will be all sorts of things that are trying to contest with our wellness. So it is about our ability now to be able to take a stand and maintain a balance and find what kind of coping skills we are going to. For instance, look at when COVID hit the world. Nobody expected it. So it's about how do we now, after everything that has happened, I'm sure everybody have learned one thing or the other, because there is nobody who will say in one way or the other they did not experience a particular aspect of a COVID. So the learning curve from that should be that everybody will have kind of sat down and look at what mechanisms do they want to put in place to take charge of their health so that such a thing will not catch them unawares again. Now, because we don't have too much time, talking about wellness actually is not a thing that we can talk about in an hour like we have tonight. It's, for me, I tell people wellness is a journey. So it's a thing that we do all life. Because even if we go back to those definitions that I read in the beginning, those Bible scriptures, it says it uses, one of the versions use the language continually. So even if we are going to hit 120 years old, we want to hit it and go back to the Lord healthy and hearty. We don't want to be dragged around like a vegetable and all that. Nobody prays for that. We want to make sure that we live a proper, good life up to the last of our days. And the Lord, in his infinite mercies, he will bless us with that in the name of Jesus. So I have decided to summarize what and what we need to do in very short, brief areas so that we can walk through it. I'm trusting God that in the future, we will still have opportunity to work together because, like I said, wellness is a journey. So it's not something that we can conclude today. So these are the summary of things that we can do to make sure we attain wellness. So we want to talk about the water we drink. Do you know that a lot of people, they just continue to complain about headache and they keep on running to paracetamol? Unfortunately, the side effects of paracetamol in the long term is terrible. In fact, paracetamol can give people ulcer. So if people take too much of all these analgesics and painkillers, they are just gradually disabling their digestive system and giving themselves slow poison. But sometimes the headache might just be as a result of not drinking enough water. If we are dehydrated, the first place we are going to feel it is in our brain, because our brain is predominantly made of water. So if there is not enough water there, of course, we are going to have a headache. So as women, I don't know, I think it's only women on the platform tonight, we should drink at least about 2 liters of water. And 2 liters means about 4 of those small 500 milligram milk bottles. But you see, having said that, because I said it's a journey, don't feel condemned if you are the type who have not been used to drinking water. It doesn't mean that from tomorrow you have to finish 2 liters. You can start gradually. You can start with 1 cup in a day. But you know that you have a goal to be able to get to 2 liters. So after a week or so or two, you can increase your 1 cup to 2 cups, and then gradually until you get to where you want to get to. But we must ensure that we drink enough water. And apart from it being needed by our entire body and our brain, water, our kidneys need a lot of water to be able to flush our system properly. And then the quickest way for us to know if we are not drinking enough water is when we go to do number 1, if our urine is not clear. If it is yellowish, that means there isn't enough water in our system. Our urine should always have a clear color. And then next to that is about what I'll call the Eat Well plate, which is a kind of a guidance on how our plate should look like. You know, it's a kind of a guidance, like I said, because at the same time, we can't eat all the things that we will eventually see when I break that down in subsequent slides. And then, of course, we have to be very physically active. And being physically active, when I say that, it doesn't mean that we have to go and enroll in the gym, because some people cannot afford the gym. Some people don't have the time. Several reasons why people may or may not be able to join the gym. But being physically active could just be as simple as taking a walk every day, 30 minutes walk. But we do it as a deliberate program, not just to say, oh, I walk to walk. You know, all those are important. Little steps like dropping when we are going home from work, maybe about 2 or 3 bus stops away from our house, walking the rest of the journey. Maybe in the morning, going out 10 minutes earlier than we normally would have gone out, walk some distance before we hop on the bus. Every opportunity we have to walk instead of driving, we do the walking. Every opportunity we have to take staircase instead of the lift, we take it. Those are little ways that we can get used to being physically active. And then finally, we have to have enough sleep. Because when we don't have enough sleep, then our brain is tired. And when our brain is tired and we are still trying to work it, it's always leading to all sorts of different kinds of problems. Now, this is what I call the Eat Well plate. Actually, if we went online, this is what we are going to see mostly on Google. That's how the Eat Well plate usually look like. But I've decided to, bring it more home for us. So work with some of my colleagues and then come up with this one, which has broken it down so that it includes different kinds of examples, particularly for our own culture, that we can look at all these varieties. And it doesn't mean that we are going to eat everything that is here, but there are all sorts of different options so that if we look at it, we can be able to know what category what falls into. And then we can see the demarcations that are there, which is showing us what percentage of all those categories we are supposed to have in our plate to make it a balanced diet. That's why they call it Eat Well plate, which means you are picking what you need to eat to be well. And we see how some of them are very small, some are very tiny, and some are large. Like the vegetables now and the carbohydrate area, they are very large ones. So that means that should constitute the greatest portion of our food when we eat. And then this is a way to slightly break it down. I mean, if you were told to look at those percentages, one would be surprised that they come like this. So I thought I will also bring this up so that we can see it, particularly the area of the oils and spreads, which is supposed to be only 1%. And again, I'm going to say something without disrespect. You know that in our culture, a lot of us like to use a lot of oil because they say they are frying pepper to be able to eat rice. And then there will be a lot of oil flowing on our soup, which is not really good for our health, because all these things at the end of the day, they continue to form layers on the walls of our arteries. And then it continues to thin it down. The amount of blood it is supposed to be pumping through our heart is not able to do it with ease, and is not going to allow the body to function properly. Now, I've come up with these 8 tips that we can actually follow for aging well. So that, because the way God, even in the Bible told us that Moses, see how long he lived. But the Bible says that he was not his skin, even his eyes was seen clearly. So the fact that we are growing old does not mean we should be unhealthy. So we can age well. But if we want to age well, these are 8 simple tips. If we can follow this as a way of life, as a lifestyle, trust me, we'll be aging well. In fact, when people meet us and they know about our age, they will be wondering if they don't know that, if they didn't know that we are Christians, they will have thought that we are lying about our age, because we'll be strong and we will look well. We won't wrinkle if we look well after ourselves. So the 8 tips that I've come up with, if we base our meals on healthy whole meal foods, if we eat lots of fruits and vegetables, if we eat more fish and reduce the meat that we eat. You see, because red meat, not that we shouldn't eat it, but if we can cut it down. Because in the first place, when we eat red meat, I think it takes about 4 days to digest in our system. So imagine canning about something you have eaten for 4 days. And apart from that, we get protein from it, don't get me wrong. But then if we can cut it down and eat more of fish, including a portion of oily fish. Oily fish is I think it's called mackerel. You know, that fish, it's so wonderful because of all the nutrients that we find in it. And then we cut down on saturated fat and sugar. And one of the simple ways we can cut down on saturated fat, you know, when we buy all this chicken, at least the kind of chicken that we find here in England, there are so much, all the skin is so full of saturated fat. So one of the easiest things I teach people when I run healthy eating sessions is that we can remove the skin and do more of grilling. So when we are grilling it, all the fat will drop in the oven, will drop into the baking tray. Because many times, again, I'm not saying this out of condemnation, and I'm not saying it with any kind of disrespect. A lot of times when people boil all this chicken, they boil it with the skin, they use the stock again to cook their soup, which is already, if you want to try out what I'm telling you, when you finish boiling your chicken, put the stock in a bowl and put it in the fridge, just overnight. By the following morning, you will see that more than half of that stock is already solidified fat. And that is what we are putting in our system. Because if we don't look at all these things from that perspective, it will look at if when people talk about it, they are just exaggerating the fact that it is unhealthy to eat like that. And then we need to try to eat less salt, no more than 6 grams a day. And when I say we eat less salt, I will quickly give us a hint how we can reduce our salt. You know, we should experiment with all these herbs and spices. And when we want to cook, it is important that we start with the herbs and spices, use some curry, coriander, garlic, cayenne pepper, different things. And then by the cinnamon, when we have put all these things, then we can add a little salt. But the challenge we always have is that we start with the salt. So when people start with the salt and they are tasting, they say, oh, the salt is not enough. So they keep on putting. But if we add all these herbs and spices first, you'll be surprised we'll have given it a nice taste. And all we will now need after that one is just a little bit of salt. Because at the end of the day, an adult is only allowed to have 6 grams of salt a day. And that 6 grams is about half a teaspoon. And bearing in mind, the bread we eat already has salt. The baked beans already has salt. Everything, talk about it. They already have salt in them. The tuna already has salt. Actually, most of the time, all these things, they are preserved in salt. So by the time all those are already there, then we are now adding our own again. You'll be surprised we're eating way too much salt than we are supposed to eat. And then the number 6 tip is that we should get active and try to be a healthy weight. And one of the things I'll add as an addition to that is that when we are healthy weight, the moment we get overweight, we are writing an invitation to several ailments. When people are overweight, they run the risk of developing heart diseases. They run the risk of developing cardiovascular problems. They run the risk of developing arthritis. They run the risk of developing diabetes. Mention it. All these things are causes, and they are always going hand in hand with one another. So it is better for us to not to open the door for them at all. And the door, the main grandfather of all these problems, is being overweight. So that is why it is so crucial to make sure we maintain a healthy weight. So if for whatever reason our weight is beyond what it should be, like I said, it is a journey. As long as we realize that, and then we start on that journey and try to get there, and there is nothing that is impossible. Once we make up our mind, you know what, this is something I need to do, and we set out to do it, and then we receive the grace of God and the ability to, after all, the Bible tells us we can do all things through Christ that strengthens us, but we have to make that decision to want to do it before Christ can strengthen us. Because even if he strengthens us and we don't do it, or we don't take our decision, or we are not consistent, then we are not going to be able to achieve any positive result. And then, of course, we drink plenty of water. As I've said, drink up to 2 liters of water a day. And then, most importantly, we never skip breakfast. And the reason for that is that breakfast is the most important meal of the day because it is brain food. It's like putting our car on the road without putting fuel in it. So if we eat breakfast, we give food to our brain, and then our brain will be ready for the day. But a lot of people, they say maybe because they want to lose weight, they don't eat breakfast. No, that's a wrong way to go about stuff. It is very crucial to eat breakfast. And breakfast does not need to be a heavy meal. It might just be one slice of toast with some cereal, healthy cereal, not sugar frosties or all those, or cocoa pops, all those kinds of sugar-loaded. And that's another, in fact, that's a topic for another day. I'm trusting that eventually in the near future, we will have opportunity to still do a lot more work together. So we can be able to visit all these areas one after the other, because that sugar is the whole topic of a workshop on its own. That sugar, for instance, is the worst killer of everything. Sugar is the food for cancer, because every human being has some cancer cells in their body. But if we feed it, then they will grow. And that is when it becomes a problem. And the major food of cancer is sugar. And it manifests in different ways, so many various ways, but that is a topic for another day, because I just want today to kind of do a kind of an overall preview into how we can take charge of our wellness. And then when I have any other opportunity with you in the near future, we can decide to pick any other topic that might be interesting to all of us, and then we can look into it. This is another crucial area, the food labels. And the reason why this is very important is that, oh, sorry about that. You know how we all work very hard before we make money. So if we are working hard to make money, it will be very sad. The way I say it to people during my sessions, and people are always laughing, I say it is sad if we work so hard to make money, and if we now go to spend that money to buy things that will kill us by installment. Because these things, they don't kill overnight. They kill gradually by installment. So this one is something that we can easily find it online. And if Uji wants, I can send it to her by WhatsApp so that she can share it with all of us. Because we need to have this in our wallet so that when we are shopping, that's another topic again for a whole session, reading and understanding food labels. Because those who manufacture all these things, they deliberately sometimes make it confusing for people. Invariably, people just keep buying what they like because of ignorance. So Everybody understands the traffic light, whether or not we drive. So the green area is where we want to be. The amber, which is the orange, a little bit, maybe like treats and stuff like that. The red, which is danger, is a place we don't want to go at all. So it's about us understanding how do we read these labels, because every product we buy in the shops, they have nutritional information at the back. So we need to understand it and check what we are buying. Look at how much sugar is there. Look at how much fat. Look at how much of the fat is saturated, and look at the salt that is there, so that we are making what I call informed decision about what we are spending our hard-earned money to buy, and what we are also buying for the family. Those of us who have children, who have families that we look after, but we are the one who do the shopping. So we must make the right decisions while we are doing that shopping. Now, there is something that is usually called nutritional gap, which every human being has, including myself. And that nutritional gap is the difference between what we are eating, what we are obtaining from eating a reasonable diet. Remember, I said reasonable diet, and what we actually need for optimal health. And that is what is called a gap in our nutritional gap. And the reason for that, because of the food choices we make, many times people make very wrong choices about what they are eating. Then even those who make the right choices, what are the nutrients that are in what they are eating? And then again, the health of our digestive system is another thing. Remember, our immune system actually lives in our gut. So if we have a problem with our gut, it's going to affect our immune system. And unfortunately, our immune system is the control tower of our existence. So if there is a problem at the control tower, imagine what happens to the pilot and the airplane is flying. So the immune system is the control tower. So we have to ensure that it is in a good place. It is when our immune system is in a good place, we're able to ward off infections. Maybe when there is like the pandemic and things like that happened, it will have cushion how we are going to be able to respond to these things, so that if our immune system is in a good place, even when we get some of these things, it won't knock us out completely. But if the immune system is weak, it will just completely knock that person off their feet. Then our lifestyle factors, and then our activity levels, and even our genetics. And in addition to all these things, all these foods that we eat, even when we eat our 5 a day, 10 a day of vegetables and fruit, what about all the preservatives that have been used to preserve them? When they are planting them, they will have used a lot of chemicals. And then when they are preserving, look at apples. If we go into the shops now, the apples will be glowing. They wax them. And the reason why they wax them is so that they can look fresh by the time they are transporting them from the farms to the city. Because if they don't do that waxing, by the time it gets to the city, it will be all wrinkled. Would you get to the shop and buy wrinkled apples? Obviously not. So they want to make it look attractive. So they wax them and polish them. And all these things are chemicals. Unfortunately, no matter how much we wash them, we cannot remove all these chemicals. So we end up eating it with all those chemicals. And those chemicals, they end up as toxins in our system. And these are the things that create a lot of nutritional gaps in our lives. And because of that, again, if we look at all the environmental factors, look at all the pollution we get from cars, from generators, from equipment in the places where we work, different things that we are exposed to, and we have absolutely no control over them. So all these things, they end up as toxins in our body. And we need to get rid of all those toxins. And then this gap that I talk about, we need to fill that gap. And that is where taking supplements come into our life. Because when you check the definition of supplement, it says adding something to make it complete. So when we take supplements, the fact that we are taking supplements is not a substitute for eating a healthy diet. Don't get me wrong. But it is on top of eating a healthy diet because there is a gap that we all have because of the situations I have mentioned in terms of all the toxins we pick up from all the fruits and chemicals that the preservation and all sorts of chemicals they have used to plant all those things. So all the toxins we pick from there and the ones we pick from the environment, they toxify our system, and then it creates that nutritional gap, which we now need to fill. And then the purpose of supplements is to supplement our overall diet, helping us to bridge the gap between our usual dietary intake and what we actually need. And then, as the name implies, dietary or nutritional supplements, they have to be natural products. Because you see, if they are not natural, I mean, you can't fight chemical with chemical. It wouldn't make any sense at all. So they have to be naturally obtained so that they can now do what they are supposed to do to bridge that particular gap. And generally speaking, before I usually, in terms of supplements, what everybody will need, what Taye will need, will be different from Kendi because they are at different points and they are looking to achieving different goals at the end of the day. So there is no one cap fits all. So invariably, people will only have recommendations of what is going to be useful for them before they can know that this is the one that they can take. Yeah, so generally speaking, that is where that stands. So unlike Muji has said to you, if anybody wants to have, one-to-one sessions or they have questions that they don't want to ask on this platform, I mean, as soon as I finish talking now, there will be opportunity for us to ask questions. But Moji will have this information, which anybody can collect, and then we can take it from there. So I hope I'm doing well for time, and then I'm happy to take questions now.
Thank you, Ma.
Please, may I have a question?
Yes, please.
You talked about supplements, yeah? So what kind of supplements can we take to fight against the toxic that we get from fruits?
Yeah, that is why I said, generally speaking, maybe we might have another session for that really. But generally speaking, what everybody will need will differ from one person to the other. But as a general theme for wellness, it's good to take supplements that can cleanse our system. So if Moji wants, we could have another session where we can look at supplements and natural supplements and food nutrients that people can use. Because today we just want to give information about how we want to take hold of our wellness. But I'm happy to run that session at another time so that we can specifically look at different supplements and food nutrients. Is that okay by you?
Okay, Ma. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Ma. Please, is there another person that want to ask question?
I have a question, Ma.
Go ahead.
Good evening, Ma.
Good evening.
Thank you for this great lecture, Ma. We really enjoy it. God bless you, Ma. Please, Ma, it's a personal something. Like a few weeks back, I passed through a lot. I had many work to do, and many a times I'll be awake to do it in the night. And after everything, I discovered that the kind of headache I had, I've never had that one before. The back of my head like this, was just doing as if there is heat. It's emitting heat. And the same thing with my 2 ears.
Jak ktoś ogląda,
So-
to ma tego.
My 2 ears. So later, I just stopped all those was. I started having my sleep at the right time in the night because I'm an early bed. So it has reduced. In fact, all the issue of the ears has gone. But at times, it's not as if I have headache in the head though itself, but the back of the head that I still feel at times as if something is breathing. I don't know. I don't really know how to explain it, but I know I can explain it better even in Yoruba than in English.
Yeah, go and say it in Yoruba.
Ṣé ló dà ń pé orí yẹn kì í ṣe inú orí gangan, the back of the head. Nígbà tó ń mí sẹ́yìn tó ń ṣe sómi tí kò tí ì padà, mo ṣe ń fìlẹ̀ lẹ́kọ̀ọ̀kan kò tí ì padà fully. Though I didn't use any drug, I just continue to have my rest, my enough rest since that time.
Okay. How is your
I don't know.
water intake?
Well, I don't know whether I'm doing but I'm trying the area of water, but I cannot really evaluate myself to say that I'm taking enough or whether I'm taking less.
On the average, about how many bottles of water do you think you usually take in a day?
In a day, I
You know the small bottle, the 500
Yes.
one. About
nothing less than 3. Nothing less than 3 per day, man.
Okay, that's not bad. That would be about 1.5.
Nothing less than
Because
3.
what you want to target is to go to 2 liters. Well, yeah, because the water then doing your lot of rest as well. And I don't know, maybe it might be that and have you spoken to your doctor?
No, ma.
Okay.
No, I've not taken any drug. It's not as if I'm having a headache, but I still feel that one once in a while now. Though I stopped all those